Hey, Games Workshop just announced some really bad news, in my opinion, which is that a whole lot of Firstborn or classic Space Marine units are gone, seemingly forever. The data sheets remain for 10th because they launched with them, which is a whole other issue in my mind I might get to. But yeah, I mean, for me, fundamentally, what Space Marines are and what they were are two completely different things. They're not the same faction anymore. They may have similar aesthetics and similar looks, though not exactly the same. Um, but the core of what Space Marines are, it's different. And I'm going to try and talk and explain what that is and why some people are upset about it. Because I've seen a lot of players, some old, but a lot of new ones, say they don't understand why people would be upset at this. They've had 20 years to play with these units, and Primaris has been releasing steadily, and they should have seen it coming, and all of that. Okay, let's get to the core. What makes Space Marines Space Marines? To me, it's tactical flexibility. They can do everything, kind of like Master Chief in Halo or the Spartans in general. You know, in Halo Wars, maybe you don't, but in Halo Wars, the Spartans were rare. I think you could only have three per army, and they could hijack any enemy vehicle and use a variety of weapons like heavy machine guns and rocket launchers. Whereas a normal Marine, uh, guardsman equivalent, couldn't do that. You know, they had a role. And Space Marines had roles like tactical Marines for troops and they would capture objectives. But the whole purpose of a tactical Marine is to show that you could give any Marine a rocket launcher, you know, a flamethrower, a plasma gun. They're going to know how to use it and they're going to kick ass with it. There are more specified roles, things like Devastators, and assault marines, but even they had choices. They aren't all power source and a shield. They're able to bring a variety of melee weapons. Some of them even bring flamers. Some of them even bring a melter gun. With the Devastators, some of them bring plasma cannons and some of them bring las cannons, depending on the situation and what's going to create the best outcome for them. The way Space Marines work is you become a recruit and then you become a scout and you go on lots of missions. At this point, you are at a varying point in your Space Marine transformation, but you haven't quite earned the power armor yet, essentially. So you go on missions that are more espionage or, you know, have a bit of stealth involved, and that's all to set you up to think tactically. Because Marines may be able to take on 50 armed combatants at once, but they shouldn't do it if it's going to make a big risk of them dying because they're too valuable. So they need to learn how to recognize fights that they can win and how to leverage different things like explosives. After that, they graduate and they don't necessarily just become tactical marines. They go into the devastators or they go into assault marine, depending on how they develop to what they're good at, and there they learn how to do that, and then they become tactical marines. So a tactical marine has had good experience as a devastator, say, and that's why they can use a plasma cannon. Space Marines now are hyper specialized, right? In a way that only really Eldar have been before. I'm a big Eldar fan, and this is another reason why the changes to Space Marines affect my army and affects me in the way I look at the game. Space Marines are tactical, flexible, they can do everything, right? They're good at everything, jack of all trades, masters of everything, basically. Gameplay wise, they're more like jack of all trades, masters of none, for balance reasons, but in lore, it's a bit different. Eldar have all the time in the world, but very few of them actually do multiple, specializations. Those that do end up becoming autarchs usually. So like a fire dragon will go on the path of the fire dragon, learn all about how to destroy monsters and vehicles with melter gun equivalents, fusion guns, right? And they know how to get in close, how to just, find weak spots, all of this stuff, and they do it for 1,000 years until they're amazing at it, and then they keep doing it because that's what they're good at. Space Marines, on the other hand, do a bit of everything, and they're really good at it. But in game, say a fire dragon, it's going to outperform a tactical squad that only has one fusion gun in it or one melter gun, because when they're talking about taking on vehicles, and then devastators, you could have a variety of different heavy weapons in, whereas fire dragons just have their fusion guns. They don't really have any other options other than the Exarch, who has a flamer option. Um, and a fire pike, which is just a more powerful fusion gun. The point I'm trying to make here is essentially Eldar were defined by having hyper specialized units that do one thing and they do it really well. Striking Scorpions are stealthy and they are a bit of a blender. Howling Banshees are really good at charging at enemies and dismantling elite foes. Dire Avengers are probably the most general, and they're for getting fast movement on objectives and decimating their foes with shurikens. Warp Spiders teleport and melt people basically whilst teleporting around. So they all do one thing. They do it really well. Space Marines, on the other hand, do a bit of everything. And that was that identity. With Primaris, we started to see units that would just aspect warriors from Eldar, but with Space Marine skins. Basically, the Melter squad that Space Marines got outperformed Fire Dragons for a long time, doing the exact same job with the exact same setup, where they're just a squad of 5, say, and they've got Melter guns, and they get in close and they blow up vehicles and monsters. Never mind the fact that they had longer range as well than the Aspect Warriors, but that's a different tangent. Eldar are good at the moment. I've got nothing to complain about there. So yeah, they were the new Fire Dragons, but they weren't Eldar. They were Space Marines, and then later now in 10th edition we've got a Flamer squad. Well, not even Eldar have a Flamer squad, but Marines are now even more specialized than Eldar. You've got plasma squads that only take plasma. Back in the day, Devastators could take all plasma cannons if they wanted to, and yeah, you could. You could take all heavy bolters, all las cannons, but you could choose. It was about flexibility. You could know, um, like in the fluffy version of what's going on in the game, you would say we're going up against an armored division. Let's bring some las cannons and a plasma cannon. We don't need the heavy bolters. We can leave them. Now you're kind of just like, oh, we need a melter gun. Let's bring 5. You're kind of stuck in that way, and I think it screws with the identity of Space Marines, where they can work together with different weapon sets, playing to each other's strengths and weaknesses uh, of their weapons. So, in a tactical squad, you may have a heavy bolter. They're there to suppress fire, whilst the rest of the squad is a bit more maybe mobile in the context of what's going on. Space Marines have changed their identity. Scouts going away is a huge one for me. I love Scouts. I have many Scout models, and I love the idea of not quite there yet Space Marines with less armor, having to use their brains and espionage to get shit done. I like it a lot. Phobos Marines have kind of replaced them, and they're just like elite still, just elite still. Space Marines, nothing really against Phobos. I think they got some good models and some good ideas. Scout Sergeants are actually full Marines that have decided to stay in the 10th Company to help educate and teach the next generation of Space Marines, which is really cool. And even Scouts, their sergeants could take any power weapon. They could take a variety of ranged weapons, combi, melter gun, all sorts. It showed that they were masters of what they do, in the same way that Autarchs and Eldar can bring, a jump pack from Warp Spiders with a Banshee's blade and a Manda Blaster helmet, showing that they've lived those lives, they've got that experience. Now, Space Marines were all like that, and now they're not. When I think of Space Marines, there's a few things I think of: Dreadnoughts, Boxnauts, Scouts in training, Assault Marines leading the charge, Tactical Marines. using a variety of different equipments to achieve their mission, and devastators laying down hell on the enemy. All of that's gone now, and I think that's kind of sad. Thank you so much for watching. I know this is heavily opinionated, and you may not agree. Hopefully, though, you can see my points and understand them, and I've made them clear enough. And I hope you enjoyed the video, so do like, comment, and subscribe. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Marines going away. Do you think it's a tragedy, or do you think it's about time it happens? Cheers.